So welcome to today's webinar. My name is Nick Sales, Product Manager here at Provar. And I've been recently very busy bringing a product to market called Provar Grid, which is our best-in-class cloud-based parallel execution as a service. And before we get into it, I just want to kick off our first poll, if we can, which is basically, are you currently using some kind of cloud-based execution or execution as a service, whether it's parallel or not? Either way, yes, no, or I wish. And if you are, and it's not custom and it's off the shelf, if you would let us know either way in the chat, that would be great, useful information for us going forward in this webinar. Okay, so today I'm just going to tell you a little bit about why we thought Provar Grid was important to bring to market. And then we're going to talk about what exactly it is and where it fits in the Provar ecosystem. And then we'll jump into a demo so I can show you guys it working, and then open the floor for any questions. So hopefully it should be quite a short, sharp introduction to Grid. So why Provar Grid? So we noticed a few problems or a few gripes that customers would raise continuously, the same things with how they're managing to run their tests and how they can use Provar to facilitate that. So first one being customers who want to run tests in the cloud and not on-premise locally. They need to do some heavy lifting to get that working. They need to get their own infrastructure set up so that they can run those jobs on the infrastructure. They might need to bring in technical resources who know how to manage that kind of thing and orchestrate that for them, or they might need to upskill current resources, and then they need to bring all that together into a working solution that consistently works each time. So our idea for how to solve that would be a way of triggering jobs, aka Provar Grid, in our Provar Manager interface, so that customers could just worry, QAs could just worry about running their tests. They didn't need to worry about all the peripheral stuff. They didn't need to worry about setting up infrastructure or managing when that infrastructure gets shut down so it doesn't cost the company lots of money, all that stuff. We want QAs to focus on QA, and that's making quality, robust tests that are meaningful in your business scenario. The second issue we saw a lot was running tests asynchronously takes time, whether that's in the cloud or locally. I don't care what product you're using, it can be a time-consuming process, especially if you've just got like one machine. I've worked in places before where we've got one machine where the tests can be run, and we turn that on at night, run the jobs, and they take all night, and we get the results in the morning. And that's something I've seen in a number of places. So our idea of how we could solve that, we could, by providing cloud infrastructure on which to execute your tests, we can provide a number of parallel VMs in the infrastructure as well, so that you could run your tests in parallel, making it far quicker to execute those load times. And again, letting customers worry, letting our QAs, who are essentially our customers, worry about making those quality tests, and letting the running of it, making the running of it as simple as possible. And then finally, an over-reliance on our ops team. I've written here Provar's ops team, but really it could be any third-party tools ops team, because if you want to set up this kind of infrastructure, you're talking to third-party providers of infrastructure. You're using off-the-shelf tools here, custom tools there, and you're relying on people outside of your business or outside of your department to make things run so that you can execute your tests. So what we don't like about that is you're not in control of your own destiny. So the idea of Grid is you will be able to use it in Manager. It will reduce the number of dependencies you have to be able to execute your tests when you want to execute them. And then your destiny will be in your own hands. You don't have to worry about other people or finding solutions, even if it's from Google, because it's an open source solution you've got. So the thing you'll notice about all three of those problems is they all come down to speed. Each one of them has an impact on the speed to bring products to market and the impact on how long it takes your QA cycle to run. So probably teaching you guys to suck eggs here. Everyone's seen this graph, I'm sure. The sooner you find a bug, the cheaper it is to fix, the easier it is to fix. If you find it in dev, it's just a typo. If your customer finds it for you, then it's going to cost you potentially revenue. It's going to cost you potentially service credits, or it's going to cost you money and resources as well to find and resolve the bug. And then the next one is these you'll have seen these, anyone who's worked in Agile, these small sprint iterations where testing plays a part. Even if you get really small iterations, and I've worked in places before, I'm sure you guys have as well, where the feature or a set of features is expected to take 3 days in dev and 2 days in QA, ends up taking 4 days in dev, and you've got 1 day to do the QA. Whether it's Agile or Waterfall where you're working, you end up ultimately with testing getting squeezed at the end. So our idea with Grid is to allow us the flexibility to increase the speed, and then that part of testing at the end is no longer the dependency it was before. So you can control how fast that testing cycle is, and then get those iterations as short as you want. And there's old adage, test fast, fail fast, adjust fast. So again, by bringing those increments down into quick tests that show failures quickly, you can adjust quickly, and that enables your stakeholders to make critical business decisions. And then finally, I want to talk about the project triangle. You guys have probably seen this before. It's quite old now, but where you've got quality, cost, and time at different ends, changing any one of those affects the others. Our idea with Grid is that you shouldn't be limited by this. With Grid, because you have the flexibility to maintain your costs, i.e. you would pay for a number of licenses, which is a standard cost, and then we're providing that as a service. If you're setting this up by yourself, you're going to have, even if you're not using it, you're going to have costs in terms of resources and infrastructure. Even if you're spinning down infrastructure at times to save money, you're still going to have costs in terms of human resources to manage that. You're going to have costs on your QA team because it will take them longer to orchestrate getting those spun up again, ready for a period of testing. With Grid, you'll have flexibility on time because you can scale how quickly tests run by increasing the number of parallel tests you run at the same time. So you're in control of the time. And then finally, quality. I don't know about you guys, but I've worked in places where testing is squeezed on time. You get stakeholders saying, do we really need to run that test suite? Do we really need to run it on Firefox? Or do we really need to run it on Edge? No one uses Edge. But what you're doing at that point is you're compromising on quality. And our idea with Grid is we don't want to compromise on quality. We want to maintain that high level of quality while also retaining flexibility on time and flexibility on cost. And all those things are why speed is really important in terms of getting those times down. So what is Provar Grid? So if you think about Grid, and we're just going to put you in the picture in terms of where Grid sits in a life cycle for Provar. If you think about a life cycle here at Provar, you'll think it all starts in Provar Manager, which is our quality hub, where a user will design their test plan. They might build out some high-level test cases that they want their QAs to automate. Then they'll synchronize those down to Provar Automation, which is our comprehensive automation tool, which is full of really useful tools to be able to automate and create really reliable reuse tests. And then they can be synchronized back to Provar Manager. And like any code, if we think of tests like code, like any code, you would upload those to a repository where you can version control them, you can branch them, etc., and link those into Provar Manager. So here now, Provar Manager has a complete view of what you're trying to achieve, what tests you've got to achieve it, and where to find those tests if it needs to run them. And then Grid, in terms of Manager, is effectively just a tool that Manager can use. So what you'll see in a minute in the demonstration is from Provar Manager, you simply set a job configuration, a schedule, whether that be at a certain time or as a one-off. You tell it what to run, and then Grid retrieves the tests from your code repository and then runs them for you in a cloud service behind the scenes. The environments are spun up for you as per your needs, as per the job configuration. You don't need to worry about how all that's done. You don't need to worry about those peripheral tasks I was talking about earlier, the heavy lifting to be able to get all that in place. It's all done for you. It's managed for you by us. And then all we're providing you with whatever you ask for in terms of that job configuration. The tests are split across those servers, and then the results are fed back into Provar Manager, where they can be analyzed to make your business decisions. And then the icing on the cake is you can actually integrate with the likes of Flowsum and DevOps Center, where you can assign a work item or user story from those, assign it to tests in Provar Manager. And then what you'll actually get is when a work item or user story moves into validation, that will flow to Provar Manager, and Provar Manager knows to kick off a grid schedule that has got those tests in it, and it will run that for you if you wish. So that's kind of where Grid fits in the main picture. And I'll jump into the demo first. But before I do, I just want to ask if anyone answered yes to the first poll. There should be a second poll popping up in a minute. If there's, if you do have any system like what I'm talking about, do you have any limitations to it? Or if you don't have a system, are there any blockers that you see towards having it? Is it too expensive, or is it just too difficult? Let us know in the chat. And again, if the answer is other and you feel like you want to let us know, please, again, let us know in the chat. So now for the demonstration. Here we go. So for those of you that have used Provar Manager before, you'll be familiar with this, but this is our quality hub. So here on the home screen, you'll have how to set up your project, your plan, test cases, and get you started. But I've done that already for the purposes of time for this demonstration. So if I look at the project, I've set up an example test project for us here. What I've done, I've created a project here with my description of what I want to achieve with it. And then I have also created a plan in my Provar Automation suite. And I've created a whole, imagine I'm QA engineer, I've created a whole bunch of automated tests in test suites, and then uploaded them back into Provar Manager. So you can see the test plan here is the same as the one I just showed you in Provar Automation. I've got all my test suites, and within each test suite, you've got the test cases. I should just point out, for the purpose of this test, I just want to show you having sort of a decent number of tests, but the tests are actually all named the same. I've just copied them across the different test suites. That'll be important for you to understand later. But so what I've done here, I've got my tests have been automated. So those first few steps in that diagram I showed you, the plan has been created, the tests have been automated, and I've synchronized those back up to Provar Manager. And also, just to confirm, I've also synchronized those back up to my repository by Provar Automation as well. So I've got a Bitbucket repository linked to my version of Provar Manager. I'll just show you that here. So I've created a connection to my Bitbucket, got my repo, and I've got my branch there. And I'll refer to that in a second when I come to schedule that job. And so if I want to run grid tests, I want to run these tests in the cloud. All I have to do from this point is look at my test schedule. These are ones I've already set up. But I'm just going to create a new one here. This system is where I link it. I tell it what tests I want it to run. So this is where I'm telling it the repository where I want it to collect the tests from. So I'm just going to select the repository that I showed you a minute ago. I'm going to choose the Provar Grid tool to run my tests. Enter a description. That's the name of my test plan. I want a user, and then I can choose whether to run these as a one-off or daily, where I can set the time, or I can choose weekly, where I want to say Monday and Friday at midnight, and then I can set that to run. I click save, and then within that schedule, I've then got these configuration settings. Now this is the key part of Provar Grid. So what I'm doing here is I'm setting up that job configuration I spoke about. I'm telling Grid how I want it to run those jobs and how I want it to orchestrate those. So the first step is telling it which test to run. So I can either run the entire test plan, everything in the test plan, or I can run everything, all the test weeks that I've specified in the schedule. So by that, I mean, here's my schedule. If I look at tests, I can add test weeks here, and it will just run the test weeks that are associated there. Then I define the level of parallelization. So I want it to run across 25 VMs, say. I want it to use the latest version of Provar. I want to generate a PDF report because my bosses still love PDF reports for some reason, and have a nice pie chart as well. Then here I can define how I want the splitting to happen. So with Provar Grid, what we can actually do is intelligent auto split, which uses artificial intelligence to analyze past test runs, analyze failure rates of certain tests, analyze the execution times of certain tests, analyze the frequency that certain tests are run, and then based on all that, determine how it wants to divide those tests across the VMs. It might want to run the tests that fail lots first, so that you know it's failed quickly, or if certain tests take a certain amount of time, it might want to run all those on split those up more on some VMs, or you can choose to have it run serially, which will simply divide the tests a test suite per VM essentially. Then I can consolidate my results, so I get all my results into one test cycle. Retrieve detailed logs, so I can get log files back and get JUnit reports back that I can analyze. And then if I want to retry on failure and how many times I want to retry it, I'm not going to click that one for this. And then the really cool bit is I can show which I can select from this matrix. I can choose, okay, I want it to run on Windows 11. I want it to run Edge latest version, and I want it to run the Canary version as well, so I can see how it's going to run on the new versions. And I might want it to run in Mac as well on Safari, and maybe the previous version of that. And then I save those details. And then when I want it to run, all I do is, if it's on a schedule, I just need to set it as active, and it will run weekly on a Friday at midnight. But if I want it to run now, I just click run. As simple as that. And then I wait for it to run, and I'll get some results back. So if I just show you one that I did earlier. So here's some I was running just before this call to get some examples. Here I've got actually, as you can see, I can see this schedule has run multiple times over the last few days. I've run it on a schedule and as a one-off to try and get some results populated. So I can see in this one, I can see the configuration under which the job was run. You can see now I've got a test cycle, which shows me I've got 100% test passing on this one. I've got I can see all the test executions that were run. So these are the test cases that were run and the execution instance. So this is what I was talking about earlier, because I use the same test case in each test suite. It's probably a bit stupid of me, but you've got duplication there. But what you'll see in there, I can see it's run on Windows 11, it's run in Edge, and now I'm going to click on that. Again, Windows 11, Edge. I'm going to look at the results. I can see a bunch of results there. If I break those down, I can see what's happening. I get all the feedback from the Provar Automation suite. If you were to run this locally, you get the same reporting. And have I got one that's run I should have one that's got a screenshot as well. There we go. So, and if I've asked it to take screenshots, it will show the screenshots here, before and after I've got there of my test. So as you can see, it's really useful. I get all the details back that you would if you're running it locally, and I get that for every time that test is run on any one of the scenarios that I put together. But let's look at one that's failed. So here I've got some failed tests. So I can see that the cycle has run, but it's only got a 54.8% pass rate. So I know I need to look into that. If I look down these details, I can see, so it's passing in Edge, it's failing in Chrome, it's passing in Firefox, it's passing in on a Mac as well. So, oh, sorry, on Linux as well. So now I know there's a problem in Chrome. So I know whatever changes I've made are working on all these other browsers, but they're not working in Chrome. So that's something I need to take away and go and look at. And that's the granular view of the test results. If I wanted to look at a high level view, go into the quality center, and here I can see the test running, so limit it per environment. And if I do it, say for the last 90 days, you can see the pass rate is going down. So that's something I want to worry about. I can see the number of executions per browser. I can see the number of executions per OS, etc. All that good stuff. And these are canned reports. But if you want to get more information, then obviously the dashboard views that are available in Salesforce can all be used in much the same way as you would anything else. So all the information, my point is, all the information is here in Provar Manager on the back of those executions for you to use. And what that's actually done is executed a number of scenarios across a number of browsers, across a number of VMs, and consolidated it all into one place. So that I've whizzed through that. I probably haven't breathed much, but that is effectively the demo for Provar Grid. So I'll open the floor up now to any questions. If anyone's got any questions on anything they've seen today or how it works. Any questions coming in here? So one question here. What is the maximum number of parallel licenses you can support? So we actually don't have a limit. So you can ask for 200 or 500 parallel executions at the same time, as long as we've arranged that, as long as we've organized that in your account, then we'll manage all of that. You don't need to worry at all about the number of executions that are being run. The number of servers setting those up. We manage all that in the background for you as a managed service. So there's no limit on that. Any other questions? Okay, so not getting many more questions in, but I stopped sharing my screen prematurely there. If I share my screen again, my name is Nick Sales. If you want to reach out to me to talk to me about Grid or even just talk about quality in your Salesforce environments, I'm happy to talk all the time. So ping me an email, drop me a line on LinkedIn. And if you want to hear more about Grid or are interested in Grid, contact us at sales@provartesting.com. Thank you all very much. I don't know, is there any other questions? We'll stay on for a couple of minutes. If anyone does think of anything, let us know. And if you don't, just ping us an email afterwards. We'll be happy to answer. Okay, got some questions here now. So we have Provar, but does Provar Grid, Provar Manager come with additional license costs? So yes, there are license costs associated with Manager and Grid. There are some free trials of both. So if you want to try it out and see if it works for you, Manager is designed to be used with any quality tool. So it's not just limited to Provar Automation. So you can manage all your different quality products in there. But yes, please again contact sales if you want more information around pricing. Can we export the results to Jira? So yes, we've got an integration in Provar Manager with Jira, so you can sync up between the tests and user stories. So there's a plugin there that can be used. Is Provar Grid an additional cost to Provar Manager? So yes, so the idea is you can pick and choose the products you want. You've got Provar Automation, you've got Provar Manager. You don't necessarily need both. And then you've got Provar Grid. For Provar Grid, currently today, it only works with Provar Automation tests, and it can only be run from Provar Manager. So Provar Grid is dependent on Manager and Automation, but you don't need Automation to have Manager or Manager to have Automation. There are trial licenses. We've got trial bundles that we can provide you where you get products and you can try all of them out, see how they work in your environment, and then pick and choose which you like to carry on using. Pricing information, like I said, at sales@provartesting.com. This is a fairly new to the market product, so we're trying out different price points at the minute with customers, and we'd be really interested in your feedback on that. So contact us and we'll provide the standard pricing, and then you can talk to us. Questions? So yes, so one license can be, if your company has paid for 10 parallel licenses, then anyone in that company can use those 10 parallel licenses. You know, obviously, if you're managing who has access to Provar Manager, you're managing who has access to use those licenses. But say if you've got if you've got two teams of people using, and they want to use Grid at the same time, if team A, if you've got 10 licenses, team A runs 10 parallel tests, and then team B tries to run 10 parallel tests at the same time, you won't be able to run them all together. The person who triggered their tests last will basically essentially end up in a queue behind the original tests. So yes, the licenses can be used across multiple users. The licenses are company specific, not tied to a user. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Oh no, there's some more. Can we use Grid feature without Provar Manager? So not at the minute. We're looking at integrating it with Provar Automation as well, but that's a bit more difficult to do. So we're looking into that. First of all, we wanted to test the waters with getting it working in Provar Manager. If you don't want Provar Manager, but you do want Grid, then please come and talk to us. There might be something we can do where we provide you with, say, one Provar Manager license so that you can just execute your grid tests, please just come and talk to us and we can work something out. How does parallel testing work in Salesforce org if they depend on the same test data? How is it handled? Not sure I understand that one. So dependent test cases will, if dependent test cases will need to be run in the same test suite. So you can have callable test cases and dependent test cases, but where you'll need one test to run before another, you'll need to make sure that they're either called in that test suite or live in that test suite. And then at the minute, the tests are broken down by suite. So you would make sure that those tests are all in the suite, and then it can handle those dependent test cases. Can we get a grid username and key for a trial? Yes, you can. Please contact sales@provartesting.com. We've got trial licenses that we can give out. Happy to walk you through that process. Just contact us and we'll arrange that. Will Provar Manager require maintenance? As how Provar tool requires tool download set up for every Salesforce release. So Provar Manager doesn't require maintenance in the same way. It's not dependent on Salesforce releases in the same way that Provar Automation is. So there will be new versions of Provar Manager that get released that can be downloaded through Salesforce. There's a find it. In Provar Manager setup, you can see plugins, and then you can see Provar Manager. You can see the latest version, and then you can install the latest version if you wish. So occasionally it's not as often as Provar, or it might be more often depending on bugs or new features, but it's not tied down to Salesforce releases in the same way that Provar Automation is. So yes, if you don't, like I said, if you don't have Provar Manager or Provar Grid, please come talk to us. We can arrange a trial for you at the drop of a hat, essentially. We're here to service you, so just let us know and we can arrange that for you. Okay, I think that is all the questions. Like I say, if you think of any, please just drop me a line on LinkedIn or via my email address here. I'll be happy to answer them for you.